Welcome, everyone. I'm Lauren Hawkins. Thanks for tuning in with us to Spirituality Adventures. We are so glad you're here, and we're very excited about the content we get to share with you through our blogs and podcasts. Spirituality Adventures is made possible by your support. One way you can support us is by liking, following, subscribing, or sharing any of these podcasts or blogs that you like. Another way you can support us is by going to our website, www.spiritualityadventures.com. There you can click the support tab and you can sign up for a monthly subscription or a one-time gift. We appreciate all your support. Now here's Fred.
Welcome everybody to Spirituality Adventures. This is a non-judgmental place to explore spirituality. And we're talking about creativity and spirituality right now. And today we are blessed to have one of my friends, Darren Dowler, here with us today. Many of you may not know Darren, but that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to get to know Darren and hear some of his story. And I think you'll really enjoy his career. It was fascinating to me, Darren, when we first met to begin to hear part of your story. And I think, and my memory can be a little faulty sometimes, but I think I met your wife first at Vineyard Church, and she started coming, I think, on a Saturday or Sunday night service. And then she kept telling me about this husband of hers that was out traveling around, singing all over the place. And it was a long time, I think, before I actually met you. And I can't remember do you remember what year that would be that maybe she started attending Vineyard? I'm trying to think. Has it been 10 years?
Yeah, I think it has. I think we came to Kansas City and started attending Vineyard in it was either 2009, 2010.
Okay. I was thinking it was close to 10 years. So anyway, it was so fun to meet you and kind of just hear some of your story and adventures and all that kind of stuff. And truly was fascinated with your career. So why don't you start by just giving us a brief intro in terms of your, where you grew up and how you started getting into music.
Oh boy.
Go back and start at the beginning kind of thing.
Well, though I'm known as a beach guy, I was actually born in Indianapolis and lived in Indianapolis for first 10 years of my life, maybe 10, 11. My memory's not that great anymore. Dates are coming into each other. But moved to Florida when I was about 11. I think I was 11 years old. So I moved to Daytona Beach, Florida.
Okay.
Did my, middle school and high school in Daytona Beach. And music has always been in my family because my mother and father were both singers. Some of my cousins are singers. Some of them is Johnny Cash, June Carter, William Lee Golden of the Oak Ridge Boys.
These are, did you say family members?
Yeah, they're cousins.
Cousins?
Yeah. I've actually never met them. I've spoken to, I think, June one time a long time ago and Roseanne, their daughter, one time. William Lee Golden, I know him from the Oak Ridge Boys.
Amazing.
One side of my family.
You just won my dad's heart over. If you
really?
know somebody in the Oak Ridge Boys. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Related though.
William Lee is the guy with the long beard, the long gray beard. So there's a lot of music in the family. Pretty much everybody plays something, does something, and everybody sings. And it seems family reunions where a lot of people singing.
Awesome.
So when I was in Florida, to be honest, I didn't want to pursue music. Even though that was my natural inclination. I started playing a guitar at 10. I saw, one side of the family was very successful. And anybody who knows a lot of musicians knows that for the majority of the musicians out there, it's a very tough life. It's hardly making any money, no insurance, hard to raise your kids if you're just playing music. Mm-hmm. So I actually didn't want to play music as a kid, because I was raised by a single mom, a wonderful lady. We didn't have a lot of money. So my way out of that lifestyle was college. So going to school, I was an athlete. I was a football player, basketball player, all that stuff up until high school. Serious runner, real serious runner. I think I still hold the 8th grade, either second place or first place record for the 100-yard dash in Florida. I believe I do. So I was going to be an athlete, but I knew nothing about nutrition. And you being an athlete, I know you understand this. So since I knew nothing about nutrition, I was just trashing my body without putting the nutrients into it that I needed to growing up to make it as strong as it should be. So I started getting injured. Mm-hmm. And And then I discovered, and I was playing music all during this time. You know, in high school, I was playing guitar and singing. I had a little band. I played at pool decks. I played on the beach, you know, and I was making money, which I made more money doing that than carrying towels in hotels. So I did that.
Yeah.
And, but I discovered,
Were you doing like cover songs then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was writing songs since the very beginning though.
Okay.
I think as soon as I learned to play the guitar, I started writing songs. You know, I was copying other people's songs and trying to learn the formats and recordings and things like that.
Who were your favorite bands in this era, like your high school era?
Wow, that's a tough one. Well, my favorite artists since birth, because I love blues, but yet I also like country, pop, and rock. So my favorite artist was Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
And I saw him when I was 8 years old. That was my first concert.
Wow.
At his height. So it was pretty incredible to see ladies passing out. I mean, literally passing out.
In Florida?
Yeah, that was actually in Indiana. I was only 8 at that time.
Okay.
And then I grew up listening to blues, and I would go see blues bands. And at a very young age, I was sneaking out to go sit and watch bands and watch guitar players and singers.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you have a couple of favorite blues bands?
I did. Well, there was this one blues band that played in Florida that was just incredible. It was this bunch of guys that I had gotten to know through connections with other people. They were called the Rudy Tooty Band.
Okay.
They're just a local blues band, but they were so incredible. Still some of the best musicians I've ever seen to this day. All those same guys are still playing all these years later in Daytona.
Interesting.
And so I would watch them. I loved B.B. King, Eric Clapton. But I also loved a Southern influence sound too. So I loved, of course, Leonard Skinner. You know, being that I've been in the music business for so long, it's so funny because I've actually performed with a lot of the people I grew up loving and listening to. And then I've got friends now who are in band. I've got friends in Leonard Skinner. I got friends in 38 Special.
Wow.
And so I have all these interesting musical connections to all of the bands I listen to. My friend of mine's a drummer of Kiss. And so and that was another great band I loved back then. And but yeah, so I loved the blues and Gary Moore growing up when I'd listen to him play. Roy Buchanan, blues guitar player, I'd sit back for hours and listen to them and just be in awe of their talent.
Awesome. Good. Yeah. So then you were playing, doing cover bands, you're wishing you were an athlete, but you kind of started getting injured. So then what happened after that? Well,
it's kind of a weird story.
Where'd you go to college, by the way?
Well, I started at DBCC, right out of high school. Actually, I did my senior year in the college program at DBCC because I was already out on my own at like 15, 16 years old. So I couldn't work my 2 jobs and go to regular high school. So I had 2 jobs and played guitar at night. So I started going to DBCC in the adult high school at night, and I started my college program early, and I went into pre-law. And within 3 or 4 months, I can't remember what it was, something happened where somebody said, "Do you want to come play music?" And at this point, I wasn't in the same sports I was in before. I had started into martial arts during my middle school years, and I became so fond of that I gave up the running, football, baseball, basketball, and I started doing that.
Okay.
And then my goal at that point was I wanted to be a professional fighter, and I trained for a couple of years. And I went to the same school, same teacher as Don the Dragon Wilson, who was the 6-time world champion. You know, I know Don, he's a very nice guy. Wow. Thank goodness. You wouldn't want him not to be nice. And, it was with an injury, a leg injury, where I was finally laid up I couldn't walk very well. I'd torn my hamstring, and my mother came into me and said, I think I was in 10th grade or something. And she said, "You're going to enter your high school talent contest." I said, "No, I'm not," because I had no desire to do anything like that. She goes, "You are, because you're laying around doing nothing. You can't do your sports. You play this guitar every day. I want you to enter that contest. It'll give you something to do." And I was really skeptical. I was like, "Mom, you can't even win it unless you're a senior. I'm a sophomore." She goes, "You're going to do it." And she was really serious about it. So I learned about my mother. She never made me do much, but when she had her mind set, I went along with it. So I entered the high school talent contest. No, I was this somewhat known, somewhat unknown guy in high school. And all of a sudden I did this high school talent contest and I won the contest. And I think to date, I'm still the only sophomore that's ever won the Mr. Seabreeze contest. Okay. Well, overnight, I became like this popular guy in school that I wasn't before because I played music. And I just thought that was amazing. I was like, wow, how did that happen overnight? I had people walking up saying hi to me the next day I hadn't spoken to the whole time I've been at school. And I was like, well, maybe I'm kind of good at this. I don't know. And I found that I had a love for it. It was the only thing even sports was my way out of being poor, kind of. I always wanted to be a Gator, wanted to be a Florida Gator and play football for the Gators. And, then things took a different course.
Yeah.
And so I was reeling from winning this talent contest. And then all of a sudden other opportunities because of that contest opened up for me. And I was like, well, this is really strange how all this is happening and doors are just flying open. And I had the theater director of the school come to me and say, and I had no desire to be in a play. I was a jock. And the lady comes to me and goes, would you like to be in our musical? And I was like, no, I don't really want to do that. It's not my thing. I've never taken dance or anything. And she goes, well, that's okay. We'll teach you. And it's funny because I said no to her initially, but she says, look, I'll make you a deal. If you join our jazz group in the school, because we need some athletes in there because we're trying to make it a little cooler, to put it straight. And I said, well, she goes, I'll make you a deal. We have really good equipment. I know you play music on the weekends. I've got all this equipment, PA equipment, microphones. You can have use of all of it for your gigs. And I'll give you a free period each day and give you an A for that period and give you an A for all the music courses if you'll just be in the theater program. And I was like, well, I can't say no to that. So then I went into the theater program and I found out that I loved it. I was having a blast. I did my first play, which I had no desire to do. And I realized doing that, I said, wow, how did I not know how awesome this is and how awesome being around all these creative people was. And I fell in love with it.
Awesome. So post-college, you moved up to New York from Florida. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And then that kind of, you started trying to intentionally move into the performance world. Was that theater? Was that music, bands? What?
It was both.
Okay. I
went up there with a buddy and we decided to start a band in New York, which we did, the tri-state area, they call it up there. And so we were playing all over the place, for peanuts, but we were playing. And then I was taking acting lessons and doing theater. I started doing professional theater when I got there and found out that I just loved it. I loved the whole creative process of it. I was never willing to get rid of my guitar and the rock and roll or the blues, but I wasn't willing to give up the theater either. And so I started doing dinner theater. I guess it's called professional theater, but it's lower level professional theater. You're making $7 a night. I'm not kidding. It's like $7 a performance or something like that. But you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it to learn. Mm-hmm. So with all those experiences and studying with the people that I did and took an interesting turn. I couldn't afford to go to an acting school in New York because they were really expensive. They were for the rich kids, let's be honest. But what I did find was that almost all the great acting teachers gave seminars, either weekends, 1 day, 3 day, 2 day. They would give seminars to get you interested in going to the school. All of them did this.
Okay.
So between private acting lessons and then going to these, I'm talking like the big time coaches. I'm going to these incredible acting seminars. I found out something else. And I've been teaching acting now since I was, 21 years old because it was one of my ways of staying alive when I was, trying to make it. And, I found out they give you about 50 to 70% of what they know in that seminar. They really do. They teach you all the nuts and bolts in the seminar to hook you, to get you to then enlist in their school for a long period. Right. And then they'll take that other 30% and they'll drag that out over a couple of years. Sorry.
Yeah.
And, so I went, well, I can just go to these seminars. I can do my acting class that I'm doing. I can go to these seminars on the weekends and I can learn everything that all these guys that are paying, $1,000 a month are learning. Mm-hmm. And it not only ended up being a good thing, it ended up being a great thing because I have found, I've been doing this for so long now that I learned so much from each of those teachers in their weekend seminars and then the acting courses that I could take that it allowed me to build my own practice and to formulate my own toolbox for actors. Mm-hmm. So I started teaching acting.
Wow.
And years later, when I moved back to Florida, an opportunity opened with Universal Studios. They said, we need somebody to teach these actors. Will you do it? Because we have these shows coming in. We got all these Disney kids, but we've got no actors that have been on a TV set. So it was one of those deals where they said, we'll fill your class if you'll just teach these actors. And I said, well, fill my class.
That's awesome. Cool. So in New York, you had a couple of opportunities to get into a Broadway show. Did you make most of your your bigger connections on the West Coast, or did you have a couple of key connections there in New York before you moved west?
Well, I had such a yo-yo story with me. I moved back from New York, went back to Florida for a while. Then I went back to New York. Then some musical opportunities opened up. And while I was in New York trying to land shows and things like that, ironically, I went back to Florida for a musical opportunity for a job. And while I was in Florida, I got a call about an audition for a Broadway show. So I didn't land a Broadway show when I lived in New York. I had to move back to Florida to actually get the opportunity to be in a Broadway show. So I actually flew to Nashville. They were casting nationwide for a show. And so I originally flew to Nashville for the initial audition for this Broadway show that I was in for years. And auditioned there, went back home to Florida, heard nothing about it. I said, it didn't work out. I didn't get the job. And then got a call about, 2 months later. And they said, hey, we're getting back in touch. We've now finished the rounds and we'd like to bring you up to New York to audition again for this show. Well, at that point in my life, it was like somebody's going to fly me to New York and let me audition for something. I felt like, wow, that's big time. I'm usually having to drive my car 20 hours to get somewhere. So they flew me to New York. And it's an interesting show because the show was about Elvis Presley.
Awesome.
And I was like, well, I'm kind of a shoo-in for this because I've been following this guy my whole life. And, how we talk spirituality and things like that. It's funny how things have worked for me because when I was a kid, I never danced. That was not something, I went out and danced with friends, but I never took professional dance lessons. So I thought that when I got to New York, I would be left out in the cold. They'd get me into the dance room but you know what it ended up happening was, and this is why I always tell my daughter, I said, never worry about the little pieces of your journey because those little pieces are a sum of your whole journey at the end, and little things will help you along the way that you never expected. So it ends up because of the martial arts years that when I got up there and they started throwing these dance moves at me, it was cake. I was a natural. I already could do the splits. I already had rhythm because I've been in music my whole life. So it ended up that I got through the dance audition. Okay. And then you had to go into the acting audition, then the singing audition, and then all these other different phases of a Broadway show. There's so many millions of dollars in a Broadway show. They pick their talent very carefully. So then I went back to Florida after the audition and again thought, I didn't hear from anybody. Nothing happened. So they gave me a call later, another month or two, and said, hey, we want you in the show. So I had to go to New York twice and then move back to Florida to get into a Broadway show.
Wow. What was the name of it?
It was called Elvis, an American Musical.
Okay.
It was a really good show. It was a big production. It was written by the guy who wrote Beatlemania.
Oh, nice. And it opened on Broadway in New York, and then it ended up touring as well?
Yeah, it toured. We didn't stay in New York very long. We found that the Elvis crowd and the Broadway crowd was a very strange mixture. It wasn't a mixture that did well. It was two different demographics of people coming in for a show. And although the show did well while it was in New York, it didn't stay in New York that long. But then we started touring, and we toured for 2 solid years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Almost nonstop.
Wow. That's fun. So, you move out west after this Broadway experience, right? And were you thinking still both music and theater, film, acting? Were you thinking both of those when you moved west?
Going west, I had my sights set on film and TV. Okay. I had done the theater thing, and even though I really enjoyed it, I developed an early love for film and television acting. It's a different technique. A lot of actors say, no, acting's acting. It's not. It's a whole different animal. And since I was a little kid, I've always been fascinated by movies. I never thought that I would make movies. I always thought I would just want to act in them. So when I went out west, it was a combination of wanting to get my music heard, because I was a blues rock and roll artist, to also getting into film and TV. Because to me, they kind of go together. They always have kind of gone to go together. So I went out west and I started working. I first worked in a casino out west. I didn't hit LA right away. I went to Reno, Nevada first, and Vegas. And I got an offer to sing and dance in a show there. A pretty large casino show, one of those created for the casino, like adult entertainment shows, you know. And it was really a great show. Just beautiful costumes and sets and music. And it was a great experience. It was actually, to be honest, that show was as much of an experience as the Broadway show. In some respects, the production was even better, which was amazing to me.
I've been amazed at, some of the productions, not even, some there, but also like on cruise ships and stuff. Anyway. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. Great equipment on cruise ships too.
Yeah. Did you break into TV right away, or was it the music side that kind of opened up for you?
It was the music side.
Okay.
While singing in that show with my plans of going to LA, I knew how expensive LA was. I'd already done New York. I knew what, struggling was like. So I was singing at the casino, and I needed a vehicle to get me to Los Angeles so I could start doing this TV and film stuff. And a group called the Letterman came through town, which is as far from any style I've ever done. They're a very, very straight 1960s harmony group, you know. And
so are young people listening?
Yeah.
Those younger than us.
Much.
Darren, right. Yeah. You're younger than
us,
me.
35ers.
Anyway. Yeah. But, they won't know who the Lettermen are. They won't know who some of the other bands are, but I'm guessing they've still probably heard of some of the songs.
They probably have,
just by growing up in America. Like what were some of the big Letterman hits?
They had a big hit with Going Out of My Head, Theme from a Summer Place, The Way You Look Tonight.
Yeah, it's the one. You do a tune from Going Out of My Head. Going out of my head over you.
That's one.
I'm sure young people have heard.
That's another one they would know. They would know. They also had, they were an interesting group.
Wasn't there one about a postcard or something? Am I thinking of the wrong band? Anyway, a love letter or something.
Well, there was. I can't remember. It's funny. I can't remember the name of that song.
I forgot it.
But yes, there was. Right. But they had hits of, the Letterman never had an original hit, but they had close to 15, 18 hits, I think, but they were all harmony remakes of popular songs.
All right.
Like, one of them was, their real big one was Someday When I'm Awfully Low. That was one of their big hits.
That's a good one, yeah.
And Theme from a Summer Place, they put lyrics to a big movie instrumental song and had a big hit with it.
Nice. Yeah.
What's the other one I did in Japan? We went to Japan. Mr. Lonely was one of their songs. So yes, you younger people out there, you won't realize these guys, they're much, much older than me. And I was in the group for a long time, but it was a great experience, and they're absolute entertainment icons.
Didn't they just recently get a Hollywood star? Like, was it last year or the year before?
Last summer. Yeah.
Last summer.
Yeah. That was an amazing experience.
Were you there?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I have one on the wall at my studio. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, when I got the call for that, being in Hollywood for so many years,
yeah,
everybody wants to see their name on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I don't care who you are. If you say no, you're lying. And so when they called me and said, well, we have some good news for you today, I said, what is that? And they said, the Letterman are getting a star on the Walk of Fame. I said, where? And they said, right across the street from Capitol Records. It's an unbelievable spot where their star is. I could not believe it when I saw it. And I didn't say a word. At first I was like, oh, it's nice of them to let me know this, because I wasn't in the group anymore. But they said, because you were in the group so long and on so many albums with the Letterman, you're going to be part of the ceremony.
Oh, fun.
So I was like, this is incredible.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I was overjoyed's not the phrase I'm looking for, but when they told me that, I put down the phone and told my wife, I said, you're not going to believe this.
You married a star.
Right. She's like, well, it's about time.
So the Letterman and then I think after the Letterman, or was it simultaneously that you got connected?
Well, I left the Letterman in 2005. I did 10 years with them.
Okay.
And then I went back to LA at that point I said, I've got to do this acting thing. I have not done this yet. I want to be in a series. I want to be in some films. So I literally just gave it up, went back to LA, and I started acting full time. I had an agent. I had all the pieces in place, and I started working. These little parts to start, little thing here, one liner here, walk on here, just like everybody does. except for very few lucky ones. And it's well, I don't know if you remember this, but what year would that be? 95, 05, probably 07, somewhere around there, I think. I had just been on a show called The Unit, a police show, and I had just been offered a recurring role on the show. I did one episode. Dennis Hayward, the big tall guy with the deep voice, Allstate. Okay. I said goodbye to him after I thought it was a day player role. And I said, look, I've had a great time today. Nicest cast and crew I've ever met. I said, I would love to work with you guys every day, but thank you for having me. He goes, well, I think you might be. I said, what does that mean? He said, the producers are talking about you right now. I was an MI6 agent. And they said, they like your look. They like what you did. They're going to be calling you. And again, I was just like, I was elated, but I said, I'm not going to count on this because Hollywood's full of promises. It really is. And a few weeks later, I got that call. And it was the producers of The Unit. And this is what they said. They said, look, we'd like you for a recurring role in the show. We loved what you did, whatever day that was. So yeah, you have to come in and re-audition, but just so you know, you pretty much have the role as long as you can come in and audition with what you did the other day. We just got to make sure you can carry the lead. It's a supporting actor role in a television series is a really big deal. And so I said, yeah, I'm in. So I think the audition was coming up Saturday afternoon. Thursday afternoon, they announced the Hollywood writers' strike.
Oh.
So overnight, it was just gone.
Oh, wow.
So all those years of working toward getting that, and it was just gone. And the writer's strike lasted months and months and months. So by the time they all came back, everybody had already shuffled to new jobs, and it was new producers, new casting people. So the opportunity was gone.
Wow.
But as luck would have it, I was on another show, and I'm trying to think, was that Criminal Minds? I think it was Criminal Minds. And I remember saying to Diane, ooh, I probably shouldn't have given up the Letterman gig now, because if I was still doing music, we'd be sick. Because we were, at that point, I was nervous. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. Because gigs like the Letterman, getting one of those replacement singer jobs in a big hit band, it almost never happens. So many people want those jobs that if it's not luck or God's sometimes saying, you know what, I'm giving you a break here, you're not going to get it. Thousands of people want those jobs. So I was on Criminal Minds. I was getting ready to do a take.
I used to watch that show.
I love that show.
Yeah.
Joe Mantegna, he's the greatest.
Yeah. Who was the other one? Pink.
Mandy was on there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Was Mandy there? I don't think
which one? I can't remember which one was first. I think Mandy was first.
Mandy was first. Yeah. And I never met him on the show, but Joe was great. What a nice guy.
Yeah, I love the chemistry of that team. It was so much fun. Penelope and
you know, it's almost that way as the people are almost that way too. I think so.
Yeah. Anyway,
but it was a great cast and a great show, and they were so much fun off camera, just like they were on camera. It was awesome experience. Cool. And my phone rang on the set, which is a no. I forgot I had my ringer on, and they had just called action. And that's $1,000 mistake every time it happens, because cameras are rolling. You've got a crew of 30 people, cast of 20. We're charging into this building, and all of a sudden, dee-doo, 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 you know, and everybody's stuck, cut. And they're looking around, and I had to raise my hand and say, it was me. And so I had no idea it was calling. So I looked at my phone, and the phone said Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers.
Okay.
It had his name on his thing. So I was like, I said, I'm really, really sorry. I said, but I just got a call from, I've been waiting on this call from Bill Medley, the Righteous Brothers. I was fibbing. I was trying to get out of trouble. And they said, the director goes, oh, right, Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers called you. And I walked over and showed him the phone. He goes, well, you better take that. So I went outside and took the call. And that was when I got the call to sing with the Righteous Brothers band. But
I got to say this, though.
Yeah.
Do you know who originally produced them? The Righteous Brothers, the guy that got them together, the original two.
If you say the name, I will.
Well, it was the guy who was the biggest influence in my early pastoral career, John Wimber, who was the head of the head of the Vineyard movement for decades. So Wimber grew up in Missouri and then moved out to Vegas and was kind of a lounge act, but he was a producer. But he got the original two guys together.
Really?
And
That's
then when he came to faith in Jesus, he he literally gave up the band and let them go and became a pastor.
So he was he was not only put it together, but he was part of the group for a while?
No.
Then he
just put it together. He was
a producer,
but he brought them together. I was literally, after I was a vineyard pastor, I knew John Wimber. John passed away in 97, but was the pastor of the Anaheim Vineyard and was the head of the vineyard movement for a couple of decades. And so anyway, but I was watching a David Letterman interview with the Righteous Brothers, and David goes, "How do you guys get together?" And they were like, "Well, this guy, Johnny Wimber, got us together. He's some big pastor guy now, And like, anyway.
That's incredible.
Anyway, but yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then he's responsible for, I can't remember the stats, but they either have the 2 or 3, all 3 of the biggest, most played radio hits of all time. I don't think people realize how big the Righteous Brothers were. Bill Medley doesn't even realize how big they are sometimes.
And like think about, when did they first, what would have that been that when they first got together? It would have been
late 50s?
Yeah.
Early 60s maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe early 60s.
60s probably.
Yeah.
And then, think about like reintroducing the Righteous Brothers through Top Gun, a huge movie. And then, it's just, they're iconic. Amazing. Yeah. Their hits just keep living.
And their stuff is so worldwide. When you would do when I would do shows with Bill, it didn't matter where you were. As soon as the music started, the electricity in the room just went crazy.
People singing every word.
Oh, every single word. Yeah. At some points he would even just say, "Yeah, don't sing." And we'd all shut up and just let the crowd sing the song.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And he's a really neat guy. Bobby was a great guy too. I was fortunate enough to know both of them before Bobby passed away. And that's why I had a job, because Bobby passed away.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was great. But that might've been the coolest phone call of all, because the way Bill put it to me on the phone call, because I'd known Bill for years. He used to come see my show in Reno. And that big, deep voice of his, he'd be like, "Hey, Darren, okay, it's Medley. I need you to come sing with me, all right? Or what are you doing?" So, "I'm on this TV show right now." He goes, "Well, pack that up. I need you to come sing with me." I was like, okay, Bill. Yeah, sure. He goes, "But here's the thing." And now he said this like this was a bad thing. I'm going to really work you, because you're going to come out the first half of the show. You're going to be the lead singer of Paul Revere and the Raiders. Then I'm going to change your clothes, and then you're going to come out and sing with me. So you got to do both shows. And I'm thinking to myself, he's saying this like this is a bad thing. I just landed 2 national gigs in one phone call.
And what was the Paul Revere connection that he had?
They were doing a show together they'd known each other their whole careers. Okay. But they were doing a show together in Branson at the American Bandstand Theater. He had taken over the theater. And so what they were doing was they made it, I guess it's called a co-bill, where it was you could come tonight, see the Raiders and the Righteous Brothers at Bill Medley at so-and-so. So they had known each other for a long time.
So help our younger audience out one more time. Like, give us a couple of tunes from a couple of the Righteous Brother hits, and then Paul Revere and the Raiders. So this door literally opened for both of these groups for you at the same time.
With one phone call.
One phone call. Yeah.
And he said, and I'll never forget this part. He goes, "Now I will pay you twice. You're doing both jobs. You get paid for both." And I was like, I love this guy. So, but for the younger people, they'll know the Righteous Brothers from Unchained Melody, which is the biggest movie song of all time.
You got to give them a.
"Oh, my love, my darling, I've hungered for your touch."
Awesome.
They got to know that one, I'm sure.
Of course.
And then, of course, Loving Feeling. "You never close your eyes anymore when I kiss your lips. You lost that love and feeling." That's the one that's in every movie known to man.
Right.
And is that the one they did in Top
Gun?
Yeah, that's the one, right?
Yeah, they're singing in the bar, remember? Yeah.
Tom Cruise singing the Righteous Brothers. And then for the Raiders, now, here's what's funny about this combination, though. The younger people probably will only know Indian Reservation of the Raiders because Tim McGraw did it. Cherokee people, Cherokee tribe. The younger people might know that song. And there was Kicks. There was Good Thing.
I didn't know Tim McGraw did that.
He sure did. As a matter of fact, it was one of the funniest moments I ever had was standing in the autograph line after the show. Because the Raiders, up until Paul died, we were still really busy. That's why I never saw you. I was on the road all the time.
Yeah.
And, but I'll never forget this young kid walks up and looked at Paul Revere. This is Paul Revere's big 1971 #1 hit. he looked at Paul Revere, and he was this young kid, really cute young kid. He looked at Paul Revere and he goes, "Hey, I didn't know your music, but you did a good job on that Tim McGraw song." I thought Paul was going to die laughing. At first I wondered, how's he going to react to that? But then Paul has this laugh. Paul was a character.
Funny. Oh man.
But yeah, so I landed both gigs with one phone call. I was a blessed day.
08?
I think it was 08. Yeah.
Okay. Man.
And that's what brought us back to Missouri.
Yeah.
That's when we came to, and then 09 is when we moved back so that Diane could go to school, and I was going to do the show in Branson for a year or two. Mm-hmm. And so it just worked out perfectly.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's where our lives intersected. So you toured with them for a good, until Paul got sick, right?
I actually stayed for 3 or 4 years past his passing.
Okay.
And we were fairly busy up to as soon as Paul died, though, 50% of our shows died off as well, because he was the last original member of the group. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we kept going, and I only left the band a couple of years ago. I made the decision a couple of years ago. The guys in the band, they're great, but they're a lot older than I am, and they're all kind of, it's okay if we don't work, we'll retire. Mm-hmm. We'll just retire. I unfortunately wasn't part of the original group like they were. And so I didn't have a 30-year, 20-hit career, and I wasn't ready to stop working. So I made the decision one day. I was just like, they're not working enough for me. And we started having clashes, schedule clashes. Mm-hmm. It just so happened that some of the shows I'd be offered as a solo act would interfere with the Raider shows. And I tried to work it out so I could do both of them. It doesn't usually work. It's just too much. Okay. So it was just a mutual decision where, guys, I want to work. I know you don't. Let's just go our own way. Okay. And it was really a good move for everybody involved, because we really were having serious schedule clashes. And you know how that is. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit. So, I mean, that kind of catches us up pretty close to where you're at now, and as far as the music side goes. But I'd kind of like people to hear just a little bit about some of the movies that you've either acted in or produced, but give us kind of a quick rundown of that, if you can, just like a real quick,
Well, I started in LA when we talked about me going to LA to do the acting thing. And when I did the Criminal Minds in the unit, I was basically a day player at that time. I was just trying to get any job I could as a supporting actor. And I did about 20 television series. I can't even name them all anymore. I actually have to look them up on IMDb myself to remember, because I was so busy at the time. But I always had the desire to produce my own stuff, always. Since the day I started producing music, I thought maybe producing film would be cool too. So I went to school for film. And so a few years into it, I started doing really small things. I started doing pilots, and I started doing small productions, independent films and things like that. And along the way, I was still acting. So, I mean, I did some movies like, it's funny, I've been on $100 film sets, and I've been on $100 million film sets. Mm-hmm. So I've done small independent films where there's been 3 crew guys and 2 actors. And then I was in a Will Smith movie one time that I think it was a $150 million film called Hancock, a superhero movie.
Right. I like that movie.
That was a good movie. That was a fun movie. And he's a super guy. And I worked with Shia LaBeouf and Billy Bob Thornton in a movie one time called Eagle Eye. And I'm
trying to remember that.
Shia LaBeouf, it was about a terrorism thing.
Okay.
Where they were forcing Shia LaBeouf to do some things, or they were going to kill his family and this and the other thing. And Billy Bob Thornton was a cop. Okay. I think it was the FBI or something. I can't remember.
I like both of those actors.
Yeah. It was a good set.
They're acting. Yeah.
I walked into the Spruce Goose hangar in Playa del Rey, California, which is where I lived, actually. And the Spruce Goose hangar is where Howard Hughes built that big Spruce Goose plane. I mean, it's enormous. You have to walk into this thing to understand how big it is. It's like a city. It's so big. They had chair for chair, panel for panel, recreated the Hall of Congress for this movie. I couldn't believe it when I walked in. I thought I was in the Hall of Congress. It looked so real. And there was hundreds and hundreds of people. They had the senators and the House of Representatives and the president and all the officers in the CIA. I mean, the Secret Service. Everybody was there, and that was one of my greatest jobs. Even though I'm not, you don't see me much in it, but I had what I think was the greatest job in the world. So because of the martial arts stuff and the acting and all the stuff I did, I also had some connections in the stunt world. Well, I got to do a few stunt jobs along the way too. They're called stunt actor jobs. They're not just falling out of a window, but sometimes you're delivering lines. Sometimes you're delivering a line, getting punched through a wall or whatever. So I'd luck into these stunt jobs along the way. Well, this ended up being the best one I ever had. So for 3 days, my job in Eagle Eye, running up the stairs of the Hall of Congress. And my job was Michelle Monaghan, the lead actress in the movie, who's just a sweetheart. My job was running up the stairs, turning around, falling backwards, and catching her and keeping her from getting hurt. That was my job. And because what happened was we were all running up the stairs. We hear gunfire. Somebody yells, "Get down." Everybody goes down. Well, I have to turn and catch Michelle. And she's this really sweet, petite girl. And I just remember she always just smelled so good. But I remember her falling, and how do I say this delicately? I had to put my palms out to catch her. She would literally fall. Well, the only way you can catch somebody is this. And of course, she would land in a provocative, and I felt very strange about it. And the first time she fell right on him. She goes, "Hi, I'm Michelle. Don't feel nervous about this. This is how we have to do this." I was like, "Thank you for that. I thank you for that. And now that you've said that, I can tell my wife you said that. I'm in the clear." I don't have to feel guilty anymore. So
that's funny. Awesome. Well, and then I know. So did you did a movie called Rock and Roll, or?
Yes.
And you acted in that. I think Diane acted in that as well a little bit. Your wife, Diane.
Yeah. She was actually pursuing acting for a while. She didn't like it. She gave up on it because she just did not like the business.
Okay.
Too many snakes in the oil.
Yeah. But you produced that one, right?
Rock and Roll is kind of my entrance into the producing and directing spot. I wrote it. I then produced it and directed it. I played the starring role in it. And then I scored it. I edited it, I colored it, and I did the sound mix.
Yeah, and where's that available right now?
Right now, it's been on Amazon for the last couple of years.
Okay.
And yeah, they can see Rock and Roll the movie on Amazon. It's done very well. Last time I looked, it still had a 4.5-star rating.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, keeping a good rating on Amazon is almost impossible because how, certain people, you have so many alternating opinions on things. Somebody might love something, somebody hates it, but I think it still has a 4.5-star rating, which I'm just overjoyed about. But we're pulling it down soon. I'm not going to leave it on Amazon much longer.
Okay.
We're actually starting I'll tell you about this later, but I'm starting my own network.
Okay. Well, before we get into what you're doing now, like your current projects, I wanted to ask you just quickly, we talk a lot about spirituality, how it relates to everything. And I'm curious, with your own faith journey, with your own spiritual journey, and then the creativity, the music, the performing, the acting, the writing, all of these things to me flow out of a lot of this place of creative energy. I'm curious what role your spirituality or your faith journey has played in your creative journey. Have they overlapped? Are they different, or what? How would you view those two worlds, your creative world and your spiritual world?
Well, for me, I wasn't raised religious at all when I was a kid. Even though I had religious people in the family, my mother and we never went to church or did any of that stuff. So I learned about. I was introduced to we'll call it religion later. When I first started performing, I really wasn't thinking that they were overlapping. And then as I got older and kept performing and then was introduced to, God and Jesus Christ and religion and spirituality, I've always been very spiritual myself. I've done research on and read on and looked into many different religions and philosophies and things like that through my journey. But one day I just realized I realized that it does for me, I believe that every gift we have, all of us, comes from our Creator. I mean, they're gifts. Whether you're a golfer or a musician, it doesn't matter. And it took me a long time to embrace it. It really did. Because of the way I was introduced to it, I shunned away from it for a while, because when I was finally introduced to Christianity and religion, I was introduced to it from people that threw it in your face 25 times a day.
Wow.
And I was already rebellious anyway.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that never worked.
So I pulled back hard. I was like, okay, I need to go over there.
Yeah.
And, but then as you get a little older and you start realizing, and I did start searching my own spiritual place. Mm-hmm. I started praying to God and to Christ and things like that. Mm-hmm. And when I started doing that, my heart, it's weird. It's almost like this whole area of you that didn't exist before starts opening up. And, it's funny, you mentioned Rock and Roll the movie. I have a really interesting spiritual story that goes along with Rock and Roll the movie. I'd been trying to get rock and roll. When I first moved to LA, my goal was to make films. Well, I had written Rock and Roll 10 years before we made it. And I was trying to get it made for 10 years. I went to film school. I did all these things and tried to make connections. And this is a unabridged, absolute story how this went down. So we were packing to come back here for me to do the Righteous Brothers Raiders show. We were packing the house, literally packing up and almost packed up. And I was in my recording studio I remember I was pulling these two cables out of my keyboard. It's funny how I remember that. But I remember I just out loud said, God, I thought you brought me out here to make films. I really did. And here I'm going back to a place I'm not even from. And I haven't made a film. I've been in some stuff, but I have not really made something that became viable. I said, if you want me to do this, you better let me know quick because we're heading out of town. I am not exaggerating. Then this inner voice said, you need to call this friend of yours. We have a friend, Diane and I have a friend named Cammie, very good friend for a long time. And she's not in the film business. She has nothing to do with the film business. I have no idea why this message came to me while I'm packing my keyboard. I said, my computer was still there. Phone's already packed, I think. So I just, I typed a little message. Hey, Cammie, are you around? What are you up to these days? I said, I'm just curious. She wrote me back and said, hey, it's good to hear from you. I said, I'm just curious. Do you happen to know anybody that's involved with producing films or independent films? She wrote me back and said, I do. I'm working for a guy right now who's not only producing films, but he's looking for films. And I had been turned down so many times, and 2 or 3 times Rock and Roll was this close to being made, and the rug was pulled out from under me. I'd given up. I said, well, I've got this movie. She said, send me a script. So I sent her a script, and I am not exaggerating. Within a half an hour, she forwarded it to this guy. Within a half an hour, I got an email from her or him, I forget, saying, look, I just looked at the beginning of your script. I'd like a meeting. I want to talk to you about this movie. And I remember, I think that was, what day of the week was that? It was like 3 days later that we set this meeting up. Well, I walked in the meeting. He said, okay, we read your script. The entire office was laughing for 2 hours. He goes, what do you need to make this movie?
Wow.
And so I gave him a dollar amount, and he looked at his attorney and they discussed a couple legal things. I'm trying to give you the short version of it. Mm-hmm. He goes, write him a check.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I think my movie's getting made.
That's awesome.
So I said a prayer.
It's a pretty spiritual connection there.
It was
these intuitive thoughts that come sometimes. It was
more than intuition though. I literally, the message was so loud in my head to contact this friend of ours that it was like somebody in my head going, call Cammie.
Yeah. I've had some experiences that felt like that, and attributed it to God, and I was like, wow.
I don't think there's a question.
Yeah.
I mean, in my heart, there's no question where that message came from.
Yeah.
Till you see the movie.
Yeah.
Then you go, I'm not sure God wanted this movie made.
This movie. No.
That's always been
that's funny.
That's always been a thing. I've got you because I have such regular music friends and show business friends, and I have such a large, group of Christian friends that I'm like, sometimes when they ask about my films, I go, well, just before you watch Rock and Roll, know that it's comedy. It's an adult based comedy, and it's meant to be off the cuff and funny.
Yeah. Jesus always hung out with the wrong crowd. That's why they called him friend of sinners. And that wasn't a compliment. Mm-hmm. Like these were the religious people who were like you hang out with sinners. You can't be a holy guy,
Exactly.
So you're just like Jesus,
Well, I'm in good company then.
That's anyway. Funny. Yeah. Well, hey, let's talk just a little bit about, what you're doing now, and then I want you to I want you to do one of your own songs on just for our podcast listeners.
Sure, love
before
to.
we close today. But yeah, give us just a quick. What projects are you working on now? What's going on?
Well, when we moved back, when we were in California just a year and a half ago, and we decided to get out of there because things were starting to go crazy there. We were shoved out of California. I truly believe in my heart that God reached down and he said, it's time for you guys to leave. And he put us in vehicles with our stuff and we left. And I really do believe that because we got such strong messages. No, you're leaving here now. I don't want you here anymore. And I'd never had that feeling before where I felt like I was actually being led somewhere else. But I really do believe I was led back here. And it all kind of coincided with, you've known a lot of musicians and people in the business. We've talked about that before. And part of being a musician or a filmmaker or an actor, more on the music side, but all of the above is getting ripped off. It just is. There's money that I'm owed from 30 years ago that I still haven't collected. Right now, I'm having to deal with a couple of companies to get paid for songs that have been played for the last 7 to 10 years on the internet that I've never been paid for. And there's companies set up to collect for these things, but if you don't go out and physically make it happen, you literally just don't get paid. Mm-hmm. I've got a distributor. I'll say it openly. The guy who's been distributing my film, Rock and Roll. I've got 2 or 3, but this one, on Amazon, I'm dealing with him because I've known for the last few years, look, I should be getting checks, especially now in a pandemic. Everybody's staying home watching TV. Mm-hmm. No checks coming in. So I had to start fighting. I finally just gave up. I said, you know what? I know enough about this business. I've been doing it my whole life. I'm pulling everything away from these people on faith. I'm going out on my own. So I am starting my own label, my own record label, which is primarily for my stuff, my daughter's stuff. And I've got some other friends who want to be on the label as well. Mm-hmm. But we're starting our own distribution channel for the music. And when I came here with the intention. I said, when I go to Kansas City, because I've always loved Kansas City. I really do. I love the backdrop. I love the way it's a small town with big city stuff, mm-hmm. And I said, I want to produce there because the backdrop is so new and unique for me because I'm so used to everything looking like LA. Mm-hmm. It's just, you've seen that backdrop a million times. Plus, I happen to know you have a lot of talent in Kansas City. Some of your theatrical talent here is amazing. Some of the people I've met and seen perform in mm-hmm. Kansas City, they're just great.
Yeah.
So I just decided, I said, you know what I want to do? I want to produce stuff in Kansas City. And so rather than going to all that expense and hard work and then getting ripped off again, I just decided as well, because I don't agree with some of the things that are going on with like Netflix and things like that. I said, I'm just going to start my own network. So we're actually building our own, what's the word they use? I forget the word for it. Not pay-per-view, but subscription pay-per-view network where I'm going to start putting stuff from comedians, musicians, concerts, mm-hmm. Independent films. Anything I can find locally produced, I'd like to get on there too as well. But we're mm-hmm. actually starting our own network. We finally named it. It's called Omniversal Television. And I think we're going to blend that to Omniversal Pictures. And so from now on, when I produce stuff, we're actually going to put it out on our own network, and we're going to start building our network up from the very bottom, just like Netflix did.
Awesome. So if there is a parallel universe out there, it'll show there as well, right? Omniverse.
Let's hope so. Let's hope it does. Yes. We want to encompass everything.
With those doppelgangers out there, and anyway. All right. Very cool. So I know you've been a songwriter since you were a young person, growing up in Florida, and your daughter is writing as well. And she's picked up this musical gift of yours. It seems like
she's going to be much better than
I've been impressed with her since she was very young. So, but yeah, I'd love for you to do one of your songs for us on our podcast studio. All right, well, let's do it.
All righty.
All right, here we are. Darren Dowler is going to perform one of his own songs, The Wrong Side of the Track.
Yes, sir. This is a song that I wrote. I don't want to say the year because I'll show how old I am. But I wrote this for Travis Tritt originally, and it was a song that my publisher was going to shop to Travis Tritt because it really kind of fits him. It fits his whole mold. I liked the song so much, I said, I kind of want to do this song myself. So I didn't allow them to shop the song because I, at that time, had written my first film called Feud. This was going to be the theme song for that movie. Okay. That movie, as Hollywood goes, did not get made. And so many years went by. And so I finally recorded this song last year as part of my New Directions album. But my first project in Kansas City is it's a story about a bounty hunter, real roughneck guy. And this song, Wrong Side of the Tracks, is now going to be the theme song for the series. It goes a little something like this.
Awesome.
I knew when I opened my eyes on the wrong side of the bed. Had a funny feeling running through my head. I had a crazy feeling, girl, this was not gonna be my day. Well, sometimes you just gotta accept, yeah, what is your natural way? Hey, hey. Well, I had my share of trouble, Lord, but not a troubled man. Had my find my fame and fortune each and every way I can. The boss man tries to put me down, no matter what I do or say. Hey, hey. Well, big man, I got news for you. I'm gonna do this thing my own way. Hey, hey, hey. On the wrong side of the tracks, that's where I was born. Well, I had my share of trouble, Lord, but now I'm gonna want some more. And nothing's gonna stop me until I collect my rightful due. Oh, how about you? On the wrong side of the tracks, that's where I'm gonna stay. Well, I tried that 9 to 7 working man hard on this way. I think I'm gonna make my claim on the wrong side of the tracks.
Woo! I'll represent the big crowd out there listening. All right.
That's what awesome. I normally get. So,
oh, that's a great song for a bounty hunter lead in. Like that'll be.
It's going to be kind of. It'll be the lead in song. It'll also be. It's kind of the theme throughout. Right. There'll be little tiny pieces of the song with scene changes and things like that.
Love it. Very cool. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining in with Spirituality Adventures, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.
Thanks again for tuning in. Remember to visit our support page at www.spiritualityadventures.com. If you like what you heard, be sure to share it and leave a comment. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Harvey Media Production.